it's all it's always kind of nice when, somebody sells you something and says it'll do this, and then it actually does that. That's
Does it? Yeah, does it great.
oh, fantastic. And hello, Ryan and Jacob. Thank you for joining. Now let's see who else is jumping in here. Eric and Enrique and Sam, all the usual suspects. And I know you've been hopping back and forth, but I was wondering if that single factor login concept had occupied, rented any space in your brain in the last week or so.
We created a role for it in Discord.
Did we? Thank you.
Yeah,
It's been
we made it. It's the no MFA malicious sign-ins. We added a couple of like obviously we didn't want it to be alerted if someone just signs in and they don't have MFA. Like lock their account. Like you have been
absolutely
warned. But the ones where the password was correct. So yeah, we came up with a decent one for it.
excellent. I don't think we've talked about that. I thought that might be an interesting one to share while we're all crying in our cups as you're moving on.
It sounds like I'm quitting. I'm not leaving. And honestly, I'll try to still be here. I think I'll have much more interesting things to show
I think so.
once
I
I'm
think
in the
so.
trenches and actually doing the fighting the good fight.
Yeah. And for any of us who are just noticing, our healthcare system here at SaaS Alerts obviously is not covering Ben's virus that he's got growing all over his wall there. So we're hoping for an update at the next time we have an opportunity to change
You
vendors.
you know you want one. I'll send you a link.
Only if it would synchronize across both screens and it would give the same, uncha kind of
I can
type of
do
thing. I'm
that.
sure there is. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. We've got a few more folks piling in. Anybody who has anything top of mind this week, anything that's burning your biscuits or bouncing around your brain pan? The usual thunderous response, Ben.
I think a lot of people are I don't know if they're off this week, but
Yeah.
I know that I'm almost somewhat mentally checked out.
Yeah, it's between the end of quarter. And for those anybody on this call that isn't aware, SaaS Alerts has a new offering that Ben might have. Is what's your elevator speech on this, Ben? But it's been keeping our sales team quite busy. We've had a lot of partners that have shown interest and are starting to want to sign up for this. Ben, what is our new offering that will be coming along this summer and or fall?
Managed SaaS Alerts, which is the service that allows us to essentially take care and manage all the rules in your environment, monitor your log data, map your users with Unify. Should you have it, please do have it. And somehow, some way, I'm still figuring out how to do the Fortify portion. So that was kind of like that was a surprise to me as well. And so still trying to figure out how we're going to pull that one off. But
Excellent.
because
Excellent.
not at like one, I can't think of one template that I could probably make that would, like be the one size fits all for every client and every organization. So
Excellent. Yeah, so we've had a number of partners say that they want to take advantage of that and sort of leverage that side of our house. So we finally have a second SKU. We've always been sort of monomaniacal. We sell one platform one way, and we're going to do some value add with Ben's guidance and his team that he's building out.
yep,
If anybody
it'll
has
be
any questions on that,
24/7, 365.
absolutely. So a fully managed SOAR, or how would what's the one liner? What would you call that?
What's that? The one liner?
Yeah, would this be a fully managed SOAR? I mean,
So yeah. I guess they wanted us to stay away from SOC because that has the implication that we're monitoring devices, which we're not going to be monitoring devices unless there's a SaaS integration for it. And even then, I don't know how that would work, but we'll see. But yeah, we've had a pretty huge amount of people sign up for it
Yeah,
early, and it definitely shows need for it, which is good.
yeah, absolutely.
So
Um,
I have a question.
Sure.
Now, is this being totally managed under the umbrella of SaaS Alerts people, or do you have sort of arrangements with some other? Okay, so it's
No,
all SaaS
it's
Alerts.
all people. Yeah, we are we are working with a company in the Philippines that manage the people, like that does the HR portion, make sure they're paid, make sure their taxes are taken care of. But they are strictly under, they're basically essentially as close to SaaS Alerts employees as they can get. It's not through another company. I know that was asked by a couple of our account managers, but and and even with this company, it's month to month. If we decide, hey, we want to do this all in-house and manage all the HR and taxes and international stuff, then we could do it. And I think we're also going to be expanding the 8 to 5, the US hours team as well, as we had, like I said, a lot bigger bigger sign up than I was expecting. So, but that's where we're adding a lot of automation. We're gonna eat our own tacos and uh and use a lot of the rules that I've encouraged people to use. So, it's not necessarily for everybody. So the people that do like the automation, that can keep up with the modern threats that are out there and the emerging threats, that's you know really money they can save. But not every MSP is like that. Sometimes they're smaller, sometimes even the larger ones have trouble managing it.
So we got
absolutely.
a hand up.
Hmm?
Mr. Enrique.
Good morning, guys. Thought I wasn't going
Hey.
to make it and you were saved by the bell, but you weren't. So, talking about automation, Ben, one, we're a proud sign upper, whatever we want to call it,
Early
or
adopter.
whatever the early adopter. So, yesterday, talking about automation, we had another user breached with MFA and everything. MFA is becoming irrelevant at this point, apparently.
Well,
And
it's defense in depth is what I've always said. It's
third and two
basically,
weeks.
yeah, it's like protecting your castle. You got your moat, and then you have your drawbridge and your tall walls, and it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
And
definitely. But it's like at first you would think like you're preaching to everyone, you got to have MFA, you got to have MFA. It's the savior.
yeah, oh
And
yeah,
now it's just like putting an extra little hole on your belt and tightening a little more, but not doing much more past that. They're becoming, I guess,
yeah.
too sneaky. But yeah, so we obviously auto remediate, stopped or not stopped. They came in, blocked, dropped, and changed password.
Mm,
And I hadn't seen so many attempts. They first tried to come in via Mexico,
hmm.
then via Canada, then via Hong Kong,
Yeah.
England. I usually had just seen one in the past breaches. This one we're all over the place.
Hmm.
So interesting, but yeah, got it
Enrique,
stopped.
it's kind of funny that you mentioned that the hunting behavior. I think we're actually starting to gather some intelligence around, who's actually doing this. When I see old exploits, just coming in on VPNs and other really obvious dumb attacks, then I'm like, okay, this is a script kiddie. And the more complex and the more sophisticated the attack, or when I see a new kind of attack, then I'm like, okay, this is actually, I'm not going to say a nation state, but this is somebody with a lot more intelligence, um, and thereby a lot more concern. And that hunting behavior that you're describing tells me somebody can't look up a damn URL and figure out what state and or country they're in. So that just screams amateur at me.
One of the things
Um,
I'm trying to understand and grasp is what this is the way I envision it, far from being an expert on being the attacker. I'm just the expert on being attacked. So, so I would think there's two type of phishing. What I would consider a business email compromise. To me, a business email compromise, I mean, I know the word encounters anything that's compromised being a
Mm,
business email, but to me, it's when you're going after, I know Ben is the CFO of SaaS Alerts, and I'm going to targeting him and I'm trying to go after him to get some financial benefits by doing some type of taking over his email, sending some internal emails. Just yesterday, someone else I know, not a customer, they had a business email compromise and they were able to send out wire instructions. An internal employee did the wire, real everything. The only thing they changed, pending payment to a vendor, the only thing the bad actors changed was the account to deposit to. So to me, that's one way you want to fish, get credentials to go into that. And then there's these phishing that are just like automatically bombing every email sent out by that user previously to try to get or harvest more credentials. But I'm trying to understand what decide or how they decide, am I going to use this to mass produce phishing attacks or am I going to use this to go after the company?
I think it's a very fair question. And if we ever get one of those guys in front of us, but that would be a guest speaker we should get, Ben. It's like, let's get a true black hat on here to describe their methodologies and their philosophy at how they attack and what their goal is here.
I wonder if they're using AI and automation to determine who they should and who they shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
Maybe
like,
just
did somebody
company
hire,
size, yeah.
did an ex-girlfriend hire a bad guy to go after Enrique, or is that just a random drive-by? It's
Both.
Yeah. I think it really comes down to company size. I mean, the smaller ones they add up and money. The bigger ones are harder. They have the more training and so they're more aware of what to look out for. But like the small businesses, the guys that you guys are protecting are especially vulnerable because even if you put the training in front of them, you can't force them to do it. You can't say, if you don't do this, you're going to get in trouble and I'm going to fire you. And then it's like that. It's like you can encourage, but that's kind of where it falls off. At least that's where we've seen it. Like when I was at my MSP.
Yeah, no, I see a lot of partners, Ben, that their clients ignoring their good advice for a long time, but they really struggled to understand the need for it
Mm.
until there was a financial impact breach or until their insurance agent walks in and says, guess what? You're doing this or
Mm.
your insurance costs are going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a bummer for partners who've been trying to counsel our clients and tell them these are good practices. Something as simple as MFA is going to save your bacon a lot, unless, of course, you're one of Enrique's customers this week. Um, but it's these are the good first steps that communicating this has always been a challenge, and getting people to adopt it has always been a challenge. And then how do we reinforce this and keep them making this organic to everything they do? It's a
Mhm.
challenge. It remains a challenge. Um,
Sure.
kind of wrap up what we're talking about. That was something that the new offering that Ben and his side of the house will be bringing along. And I know we've got a lot of early adopters here on the platform or on the call. So thanks for that, guys. Anybody who isn't clear on that exactly, please reach out to your account manager or hit us up, DM us, and we'll be put you in touch with a little of the collateral and the understanding of what that offering will look like. And Ben, that's going to be occupying a lot of your time between now and September. Is that when we're trying to go live with this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
September. So yeah, look
So,
for some more news on that.
yeah, quick comment here. I know what's invaluable is that onboarding time. When we're trying to get a customer, trying to get started up on the platform,
Mm-hmm.
and having the managed part maybe as a with an extra emphasis on onboarding support would be invaluable. At some point, if the person gets skilled staff and they feel like they can manage it, with having the managed thing as a just as a backup, that would be great. But I know that enrollment period for onboarding would be totally powerful for that.
Yep. I hope so too. And I think it's a lot of people, when they start seeing all the events come in, they're going, how are we going to process all these? And while we do have methods to help you lower down some of the events, sometimes you just don't have time to, between everything else you're doing, to pay attention to, where someone's signing in or if they're on vacation, why didn't they tell you and what's going on? So let's see. So that's
Nadeem,
phishing.
you betcha. Nadeem will make sure and have your account manager reach out with that. So thanks for asking that. Appreciate that. Um, Let me throw something over here. So usually we talk about a little more deep and technical, granular kinds of questions. Does anybody have any questions about, configuration of Unify, or talking about what they're seeing in Unify, anything in the respond modules, anything that's sort of top of mind there?
Enrique does, just in case you don't see
Okay.
his hand. You're trying
Oh,
to hide
sorry.
me, Anthony.
No, 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 no. I've got this blind spot, and
UCF.
if I hold my head exactly right, and then I can't see you at all. Enrique, what's on your mind, man?
Yes, hello, all. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. So I messaged the other day on Discord, but maybe I got an answer. I just haven't been back in. So I'm running a couple of the different respond rules. One of them is to remove stale accounts, I believe. Um, and I've been getting hit with service accounts. That obviously, let's say the service account used to validate Dropsuite. Service account used to validate zip or things like that, that you authenticate when you connect them, but then they'll sit stale for more than 6 months. Then come 6 months, he'll get bazookas by Respond. And then I get an alert from Dropsuite telling me we're no longer authenticated. So obviously I'm going to be good for another 6 months. I just don't want to be chasing around the 6-month tail. And I think it's a great rule. I'm not sure how we can do exclusions to tell it. I mean, I know you might or might not know what accounts a service account, but even if we have to tell it manually.
A couple levels going on there. Often service accounts, to answer your question, Mr. Kennedy, they don't have any services attached. It's just an account that has to be able to verify and log in. Some of them have an email address attached, um, an email inbox attached, but we've tried to identify the typical ones, whether it's a Cronus or QuickBooks has one, and identify those, and make those filtered out. So one, they're not billable, but two, make sure that you have visibility of those. If you guys find something that is regular that you need some help with, do give us a shout. Now, Enrique, to your point, when you find these accounts, add them to the exclusion list. It's going to be a manual step, but definitely for your account cleanup rules, you're going to apply this to all clients, all accounts, except this service account and that service account and that service account. So there's a small manual lift there. Go ahead.
From each tenant.
Yeah, and it's going to be from each tenant. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
where.
Yeah,
Ben?
we're trying to push for wild cards, aren't we, Anthony?
Exactly, exactly. That was my next thing to say. It's like,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
there's another upvote to my dev team for wild cards. So if we know there's some standard naming conventions, then we can definitely take a look at that.
R.
Um,
Kennedy mentioned something about asking, do service accounts have email licenses? That took me to think, is there any way, our service accounts do not use email licenses. They're just service basic Azure accounts. So is there any way to exclude non-licensed accounts? I know we're going to cover a whole bunch of other issues that there's non-licensed guest accounts and things like that, but that would be a guest. So I don't know, that could be a possibility to say exclude unlicensed accounts.
it is something when we look at two different things. The platform was originally built to look at, and when we started this, let me take a small step back. When we started this, we're like, do we want to look at dynamic changes? We're going to build some software. What do we want to look at? IAM event and file deletion event and OAuth event, or do we want to look at static information? Is this policy in place? What is the licensing level? What was the creation date? And we chose to go down the more active path. So we looked at those sorts of things first. That's what you guys are familiar with on the platform. That's where we started. And then we're kind of circling back and looking at statuses, which is why in Respond, you have two different areas about account details and about changes. And combining both of those into a single alert is coming, Enrique. So for instance, would be if an account is unlicensed and does not have MFA, but successfully logs in from Uzbekistan, that's going to be a very different, perhaps, decision tree than a licensed account that logs in from Uzbekistan that's been active for the last, 30 days or something. So that's part of the enhancements that are coming to the platform. And again, I don't want to promise them by Tuesday, but that's exactly where we're going with this, so that you can make more granular changes to your automation, so that you can say, okay, if it is a guest user who does something crazy, or a synchronization account that does something crazy, and kind of thinking down that same path, those synchronization accounts, those, scanner accounts, any of those accounts that you don't use every day, how do you know that they're being compromised? That's the concern, is they do have some level of access, even if it's just visibility of the address book, that we're concerned about. So when we're talking about account cleanup, there are all the accounts that I'm going to manage and clean up and do automatically. That's user accounts, that's guest user accounts, that's all that sort of stuff. And all of those ones that I put on my exclude list, my break glass account, scanner accounts, accounts that somebody could be using. And if it's a bad guy, no one's going to notice because nobody's using that account every day. So maybe I've defined an entire class of accounts that I want to monitor maybe more aggressively, or take more aggressive actions when I do see an indicator of compromise. So it really brings up some interesting discussions about the different levels of visibility and paranoia, let's be honest, that I've got to have about the different kinds of accounts.
I wonder if you all can read Entra AD groups, and we can exclude a group and not an email.
That is something that Microsoft is really terrible at presenting in the APIs. That's something I really would love to do for you guys, Enrique, because yeah, that grouping, all of that architecture that you've already built on the Microsoft side, unfortunately isn't cleanly presented via APIs in the Azure or the MS Graph world. That's something that's a regular ask, and my dev guys just haven't found a way to do it. I'll be quite frank with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a little FYI, when you do SCIM and SAML setup, you're reading those groups. So not sure if they use Graph API or what they use, but just.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm happily oblivious of what they do there, and just they'll tell me how they got it done. Ben, anything interesting in the questions that we need to dive into?
Not so much. We're just talking
Okay.
about account cleanup and how they do it. He said, I told him, I was like, I do with guest accounts, I let that just delete those accounts because they don't really matter. But with the other accounts, I typically are a little bit more manual with that. But I can understand that being a time consuming thing.
Yeah, and in the beginning, that first time you run that rule, definitely put it in manual mode, so it'll identify all of those break glass accounts and scanner accounts and that test account that you forgot about that you might want to keep around, and put those in the exclusion list before you let that thing fire for effect.
But if you put
And
manual, how long will it identify them immediately? I thought it wouldn't identify them as stale until they're past the 6 months. So if you turn it on manual
exactly,
today and it's at 3 months, we would have to wait 3 months for that one.
it's true, but I'm thinking about if you had a new onboarding, if you had a new client you wanted to bring in, before you let that rule run against that brand new client, let's do some manual analysis and see if we can figure out, how many times is my phone going to ring if this rule runs against that client? We certainly don't want to be overly aggressive there, but we don't want to miss anything. So this be part of my investigation process. And to Ben's earlier point, if I'm sharing data with, my friend Alex, and then I delete that account, and next week I share more data with Alex, Alex's account, guest user account, just gets recreated. It's a total non-issue. If I block sign in to a guest user account, and then I decide to try to share more data with Alex next week, guess what? Now my tier one guys are going to get a phone call because I have to go unlock that account. So to Ben's point, definitely if it's a guest user account, a delete is far more efficient and going to get you less tickets. Good discussion. Good questions, guys. Um, Anybody who hasn't hung out on Discord, I mean, shocked that we have a Discord. We actually had a junior engineer, nice kid from fresh out of school. He came up with an interesting question about single factor logons and how to identify that. So it's kind of funny that some of us have been at this for a while, and here's a fresh set of eyes walks in for a small little MSP. I think we've got 200 or 300 endpoints they manage, And he came up with a question that I haven't been asked yet. So definitely check that out on Discord. That we had some good discussions around that one.
I thought the Microsoft audit showed that it was a single factor sign-in.
I think he was looking for the dynamic. He wanted to create a respond alert when someone signed in with single factor. Maybe a new account had gotten set up and wasn't properly enrolled, or maybe, a mistake happened and somebody got removed from there and was allowed to sign in single factor. I think he was just trying to get visibility of that. And does
Yeah.
that sound about right?
Yeah, and this one is mostly just to detect it coming from anonymous or threat IPs. So if there was a sign in from an account that doesn't have MFA, it's just kind of a warning signal to say, hey, we need to get you set up because we're seeing this strange activity. And I believe the additional details was, and this is high beta, so I could be wrong, but I didn't see too many indications that I was. It said result details is correct password, and that was the successful authentication. Whereas the other one that I saw was MFA successful or something like that. So
Very cool. Very cool.
Did you all see Microsoft came out with a preview for MFA tokens or for securing your MFA token, something like that?
passkeys.
Was that it?
Yeah, they came out with go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to say, I thought it was something else beyond passkeys, man. I saw two things right in a row in the last couple of days in my feed. I didn't click through either. I was very busy watching movies or something, but
I don't know. I mean, I know that passkeys is still in preview, but I hadn't heard anything of anything else. Let me know if you find the article. But
yeah,
it's passkeys done through the Authenticator app.
Token protection for sign-in sessions, public preview. I'll put the link here in the chat.
yeah.
Let me see if that's the same thing. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, forgive me if this has been covered, but is there any way in the application itself, when there's an alert or something like that, that's identified, like the anonymous links being sent out of SharePoint? Is there any kind of bubble or any reference material that actually point us to the proper configuration so that we can actually directly go and correct the issue instead of searching through Microsoft's confusing documentation and whether or not you got the right article according to the right version that's implemented?
A very good question. I don't know, Anthony. Do we have something like that? If not, I'll add that to my to-do list. That's a pretty good suggestion. I like that.
And we've actually, Todd had some very insightful ideas on making things on the platform a little more contextual in that way. Maybe if when I find something, here's a link back to the Microsoft knowledge base on how to maybe address that. So even if it's not something that you could directly affect from our platform, if our tool isn't able to reach back and do that, at least give you some context on that. And that's something that I bubbled up with DevBed. I would say go yell at them because I thought that was a very solid ad.
Yeah,
And
there's
Todd,
two
thanks
of
for
them. There's
joining us. Good to see you,
OneDrive
man.
and there's SharePoint.
Yeah, because admittedly, I'm not a guru on that, and but obviously, as tech people, we can, if we get pointed in the right direction, we can go fix that and resolve it. But it would be nice, whether you call it a recipe to resolve or whatever you call it, but having a playbook to follow that through would be extremely helpful, I know, for our size organization.
Yeah, I'd love
I
to see a
appreciate that,
Fortify
Todd.
control put in place.
Yeah, a nutshell question are anonymous links a big problem? Because I see a lot of them for SharePoint files that are perfectly fine. We know the client is sharing, bidding, and it's tons of anonymous links. There's something wrong with that?
It's
Go ahead,
it's a
Anthony.
permanent point of attack. That's the only challenge. Most of the clients, they're worried about my financial data or whatever it is being exposed. And that's a genuine concern. But now I've got a link out there that I'm going to imagine next Tuesday there's going to be a 0-day lateral attack that just by having that basic level of access, somebody's going to be able to glean some information out of my systems. And I can't imagine what that would be, but we've seen lateral attacks in the past that have been quite complex. And so a good idea is to maybe have a policy that no matter what you've shared, it automatically expires after 90 days, 180 days. And the
Mhm.
example that I've often been shown by partners like you is someone with the best of intentions will intend to share a file, and they'll right mouse click on the folder, and they'll unintentionally share data they didn't mean to. We're human, we make mistakes. If I had an automatic expiration date, even that simple mistake would not be a permanent point of attack or a permanent point of exposure. So there's a lot of complexity around that. Is there anything wrong with sharing data? No, that's what our SharePoint and OneDrive are all designed to do.
Mhm.
But how we execute that, maybe it's a little too easy for us. And maybe that's why Google and the Google Workspace, or whatever they're calling it this week, makes that an extra step. Enrique.
So for us, we started enforcing this via SharePoint, putting policies in so they can't send public links. Not with all customers yet, but that's what we're getting to. And
Mhm.
not so much thinking of what you just mentioned, Anthony, about lateral movement, but more than anything, the risk of data. We had a trucking company sharing LG reports for LG, the company LG, with loads coming from Mexico into the US of finished goods and all their trajectory history, where they're going to be. And
Mm.
like I told that trucking company, I don't know how LG would feel that this public link with data of theirs is roaming around the world.
Mhm.
And then we'll see anonymous links pop up in different parts of the world. And we ask the end user, did you send it there? And they're like, no. Sometimes it turns out the corporate headquarters, like for LG, is over there. So that's why they'll open them over there. But for us, it's more than anything the integrity of the data, the
Yep.
ownership of the data.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that that's a good. Thanks you for that example, Enrique. Yeah, I certainly, if I'm a manufacturer, I don't want to see my truck hijacked or know that I've got a light load. Somebody else is going to try to pack something else into that container. Anything. I can't even imagine, what a bad guy would do with that. But at the very least, it's none of their damn business, you know.
But now
And
that we got all the platforms that are utilizing AI, we really don't know what AI is doing with that data.
100% true. That's 100% true. And we were talking, I think, a little bit earlier before you jumped on, Todd, about attack methodologies. And if I was going after LG, where would I point my AI to go mine that data? And what sort of attack methodologies might I use from there? So I think it's sort of like what's the if you mention Hitler or Nazis in any argument, you automatically lose. It's kind of the opposite. I think every question that we ask now, how is AI going to affect this? That is a valid question. How would I leverage AI to do this better, or how would a bad guy leverage AI to do this smarter than I'm doing it? It's a very
Well,
valid
I would
question.
modify that only in saying the tech people are asking that question because the business owners and the non-technical don't care.
Mhm.
Well, I'll give you this, Todd. I have hope for the future. I've got a niece who's just turned 13, and she is already making her career choices based on what she doesn't think AI is going to be able to take over. It permeated into, the junior high level a
Oh,
year
yeah.
ago. So yeah, it's hopefully there's a generation that got brought up with AI being not a threat, being part of our existence. And I
Yeah,
think
my
Are
that's
you
kind
daughter
of where we're
meaning
hates
landing.
AI.
are you meaning she had career day? I didn't think they had that anymore.
No, she actually said, you know what? I can't think of an AI with a robot that I would trust to work on my teeth, so I'm going to become a dentist. And I could not find fault with her argument there. So I know.
I don't know. Have you seen the Tesla robot? It's pretty precise.
Yeah, you let it grill on your teeth, brother, and let me
I'm
know
gonna
how that
I'll let
works
it do
out.
my laundry and clean the
Mow
house.
my I'm not sure I let it mow my lawn. You got to be kidding
I
me.
would totally let it mow my lawn.
Oh. Nadim's asking, is there a way to trigger an alert of an action based on how many times a URL is accessed? That's an interesting concept. Um, Ben, in SharePoint or anybody, because I don't know the answer, if I share something, is there a limit? Can I set a limit on how many times that data can be accessed or downloaded?
Let's see. I would think so. It would be, there's an event that we record called anonymous file usage or something like that. I think it's, let me see. I know it shows up in one of our reports.
Excellent.
Let me look. Let me have a look see.
I'm just wondering in SharePoint, outside of SaaS Alerts, SharePoint OneDrive, can I share a document and then the share ceases to exist after 10 downloads?
I like self-destruct. I don't think that Microsoft has learned how to do that yet. I think that would be super awesome.
It would be, because then, and Nadeem, I think you're right. I don't think Microsoft cares as long as we keep um, as long as we keep paying the bills.
Anonymous link created.
Todd, that's something we've looked at as sort of a sandbox environment and trying to understand what the behavior of each client would look like so that I might better identify that. And it's it's a pretty intense CPU cycle. It's basically would be building an entire sandbox for each client. And that has been floated. And so far, just from a mechanical point of view, it's just not on the horizon. I mean, it's something we would like to do, but we're just not there yet.
What's that? Oh.
We're talking about something else, Ben.
Mm.
Arnold, you can set the expiry based on the number of days, but not the number of downloads. Okay, yeah, that was my experience as well, Arnold. But I was just kind of trying to figure out if there's some place in the system that was already collecting those metrics that I could point my devs at to go look. So, yeah, excellent, excellent,
I
excellent
think it would
questions.
be, so it would be the event would be a file share event and probably external. And then under the description details, here, let me just share my screen. I'll try to describe it to you. And I have technology. That's me. And so it'd be something, okay, it'd be this one. So file share event, external, and then anonymous link is created. This would be anonymous link used. So this one right here.
Mhm.
So that would detecting off of this event, this particular event, and this event description or description details would alert you how many times that occurred. But the problem is, it's like if you were trying to target a specific file, that would be the difficult part, because this would just
Yeah.
look for how many times a link is used within a certain time. So if you shared 10 files and it was open 10 times and your trigger was 10, then obviously it would trigger. So, eh.
Yeah,
But
and
what would
also
that trigger? If you
Oh,
would,
that's the thing. There's only so much you could trigger. Like you can't, we don't have the action to, like remove the
delete
file
the link.
share. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
That would require us to know the file name, the location, which we do, but we'd have to also be able to target that and respond. So it's definitely an interesting theory, something that I think probably could be done. You could also add the outside approved location as well. Do that so it'll alert you how many times the outside approved location it triggered. But I don't know.
just getting that source data out of Microsoft, I think, is where we're going to hit that wall. But I can see some use cases for that. I absolutely can.
Yeah,
And
we
it's
only
funny
get
when I
so much from an anonymous link used to. We got the location here, so it would need to, our system would need to have the permission to go in here and remove that sharing. But it's an interesting feature request.
it is, I like it.
It would definitely, it would be, I think it'd be pretty complicated, but at the same time, it would just be us needing to know exactly the file name that's being shared, or folder could also has to be taken into account too. And could we run a command that would remove that? So we would have to have a way to specify the file has to be the same as in the event
Right.
repeatedly.
We have to be able to build that database, kind of like what we're doing with email forwarding rules. That Microsoft doesn't give us a nice readable list. I actually have to build a database for every single stinking user and all of
Mm.
their forwarding rules, and then parse that out every time I run a rule against it. but it
Are
is an
you able,
interesting.
are you
Go
able to
ahead, Todd.
specify whether or not it's private or a public?
Yeah, I was just waiting for a moment to sneak that question in. Thanks for posting that. Um, when you say private versus public, like shared internally with teams versus an external share
Well, yeah, but more so along from a public or private channel inside of Teams.
inside of teams, the challenge here is at a very high level, Todd. SharePoint and OneDrive, because Microsoft built those internally, so it was kind of organic that they report to themselves pretty well. We get pretty good reporting on there. Teams was bought and bolted on. And so whatever was there was there. So the alerting that and the visibility we have within anything that's associated with Teams is not quite as robust as we might like. So that's why a lot of times, if an anonymous link is created within Teams, I don't even get visibility of who created it. It's a little bit of a blind spot, which is
Yeah,
a
I
shame
think
because it's being so heavily
Teams
leveraged.
defaults for anonymous file sharing. I don't know if there's a way to turn that off or not.
I would wish there was something in policy that would disallow that, and we'd be at least then you could say we'd have tracking on it, and you'd have to share it discreetly with a team member or a group or an external person. Then it would stop being an anonymous file share entirely. But yeah, that's a very fair question, Todd, and that's one of those things because of the underlying architecture. Teams was what did it used to be? I don't remember the name of the application, but yeah, because Microsoft bought it and bolted it on, they were just kind of handcuffed there. Skype. Thank you, Eric. I knew it and I remembered the minute I hung up. Yeah. Uh, uh, Interference engine that learns behavior. And Nadeem, that's something that we've sort of looked at is we have a sort of an anonymized meta view of what we're seeing as activity across the platform. And anyone who hasn't seen our yearly SASI report, would definitely reach out to your account manager about that. It's really an interesting distillation of everything we've seen across a year, whether it's threat vectors or locations or methodologies. It's a pretty detailed report and takes a little bit of digesting to understand, I think, all of the minutia, but there's some really good stuff in there for marketing as well. In any case, we've looked at how to take this giant data set, billions of alerts every year, and try to look for some predictive analysis, some predictive behavior out of that. And we do have some guys in our dev team looking at that, but I don't think we're going to see anything hitting the platform anytime soon. But that is
I
definitely
think,
something we're looking into.
yeah, I think that's something that I'm going to be kind of pushing from my end too, just simply because having that automation and AI along with the eyes on glass would be phenomenal for the managed part of SaaS Alerts. So
Yeah,
it's something that we're definitely talking about.
excellent. Ben, what was the Microsoft MP3 player?
Zune.
Zune. There we are. So Eric is listening to Groove on his Zune, I think.
Yeah, that was a
Um,
fun device.
um, some great questions here, guys. We got about 15 more minutes. Does anybody else have any concerns about heading into the holidays? I noticed Ben and I were sort of chatting earlier this week, like yesterday, and it's been a long week already. We were chatting yesterday about, it's been kind of quiet the last few public holidays. We haven't seen, the kind of spike in threatening activity that we've seen in the past. And yet the last few days, Ben's been seeing some trending attacks out there. Um, Anybody else have any concerns going into this July 4th holiday?
I haven't gotten an invitation anywhere.
Well, Sam, I hope it's a nice, quiet on-call week for you. Yeah, we were a little bit surprised at the last fall and the holidays there through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's were quieter than normal. Yeah, Arnold, that's one of those days when it's National Scare the Crap Out of Your Dog Day. It's
Oh gosh, I hate that.
yeah, and Nadeem,
Yeah.
that is my concern is I'm afraid that there's been some stuff lying in wait. maybe I'm being a little paranoid, but there it is. Sorry, Alex, was there a question there?
Yeah, Arnold's from South Africa, so I don't think he knows what 4th of July.
Oh, Arnold, it's our we celebrate our independence from our British overlords about 200 and change years ago, about 250 years ago.
They weren't that
Yeah.
bad, were they?
You know, it all depends on your definition of freedom, and I'll leave that to our founding fathers to discuss.
we went to Williamsburg and did the whole tri-city thing and learned all about it, and it was definitely interesting times. Lots of change since then, I'll say that.
Eric, that's timely. Do we know? Did they give us any hint? Did Enable tell us what that CV is all about?
No. They just said it's bad.
It's bad. You should really
It's
tune in tomorrow.
yeah, and they released a patch for it, and they recommended that we upgrade. So we did because we have on-premise for Enable. We don't use their hosted version, and yeah, but they won't tell us anything about it.
They did release it today.
Oh, did they do it today?
Yeah.
Haven't seen that yet.
I'll link it here in a sec.
Thanks, James. Appreciate that.
It,
So
it's in the chat.
I guess if you're using Enable,
There's
follow
two
Eric's
CVs.
lead.
Is that self-hosted, or I assume the cloud
Both,
ones
all
are?
versions
Okay.
before
all versions,
24.2.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. Vulnerability bypass user interface. Hey, why not?
Both base score 991. So
Yeah, I can understand that.
yeah, one was responsible disclosure. The other one was they identified themselves.
Jeez.
Very good. Thanks for the heads there up, Eric. Thanks for that link, James.
Yep.
So yeah.
Thanks. Post that in Discord too.
Mr. Kennedy, does IAM sign-in success know the age of a token or any token info? We do get some info on tokens because I see when like PAV or 2ROPC is used, it comes across as a malformed token, but I really don't know what other intelligence we get about the age of a token or anything else. Ben, any thoughts on that one?
No, the age of the token or any token information. So Adam and I were actually looking at something this morning about that. We see a lot of, some of our Unify events lack any sort of identifiable information, but they do have a session ID, which ends up tying back to the initial sign-in. And fun fact, if you steal someone's token, that session ID is not the same, which is a good thing. So it's something that we're trying to investigate further to see if they can be used to help Unify identify like unknown sessions. But as far as the token, I don't think Microsoft gives that to us in any even a hashed form, at least not that I've seen. So that it would be great if they did.
You got it, Mr. Kennedy.
thank
you got it.
Yeah. Hang on. I'll let you know some other stuff that we're working on. Hopefully it'll be when we discovered it this morning, like this actually could be a huge for protection.
Yeah. I can tell if that's actually a genuine token or a Xeroxed off or clone token.
Well, that's the fun thing. I ran through the evil Genex, stole my token and everything, and when I looked at the event logs, I noticed that the token was different than the one that I had originally. So like that I didn't originally had, and so a couple of things changed, like my IP address and my session ID changed completely. And if we're talking about Unify, those are two things that should send off some alarm bells. So.
And then we have to be concerned about, is that session ID changing based on which browser you're touching, or is that pretty standard in Microsoft? Because I know in Google, in the G Suite world, it's awfully variable.
It stayed pretty consistent. The session ID did.
I'm sorry, Todd, you asked that before. I don't think that there's any groundwork that Todd's question is what do we need to do to be prepared for the avalanche of Ben happiness? The avalanche we're dropping on Ben to murder his happiness. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
Nothing so far. We're still doing some of the preliminary work, and I need to have a couple meetings with Chip to find out exactly, how we're going to be proceeding. But I think, we already have access to everything that we need. We just need a way to identify the clients that signed up for the service and be able to start alerting them. And I think we can push out rules pretty easily through our back end. So it may not require too much work there. But I think we'll end up reaching out to you guys, getting an account established that we can still sign in to be able to do unify mapping. If that's something, if your RMM supports that, we're going to be using that as a very important metric too. So yeah, so far just hang in there, and if you decide you want to beta test it at all, just let me know. We're going to be looking for some guinea pigs. But yeah,
What if we're not using an RMM?
it doesn't matter. Just helps. I mean, like, it's one of those things where if you are using it, we'll definitely take those and use that information to determine, if something is a false positive or not. But if not, it's not the end of the world. Bad guys do plenty of stuff that doesn't have to do with correlating that data.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, if we have an RMM, we can enrich a lot of data, but not everything by any stretch. So it's a value add, but it is not the binary end all be all.
True.
Very good. Guys, about 8 minutes left here. Anything else top of mind before we sort of split and head off to our various vacations? I mean, paranoid states for the next 5 or 6 days.
I'm going to lunch.
He's going to lunch. Ben's needs are much closer. Sam will relate one thing. Earlier mentioned about, it sounds like explosives going off all the time. I once lived in a state where if you took a 3-credit course or a 3-credit community college course, you could get your master fireworks license, meaning the big 8 and 10-inch shells that go up 1,000 feet. You could buy them anywhere. And so 4th of July fireworks kind of lasted between February and October, just because everybody could legally do it in their own backyards. It was kind of a crazy existence. So I hope everyone has a safe and sane 4th of July, and all your pets survive and you survive with as much Prozac as needed. Guys, I want to thank you all very much for your time again today. Look forward to chatting again in a couple of weeks, and there isn't going to be a sassy call on Thursday. So, don't, you've got a little bit of your time back. Go out and have fun with your hot dogs and your fireworks and everything else. And for those of us who have joined, those of you who have joined us from across the pond, thanks for tuning in, and we apologize in advance for any firework smoke that blows downwind. All right.
Thanks. Have a good holiday.
Y'all take care now.
See you
All right.
guys.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.